Ladies and gentlemen, what's up? See, as soon as we...
You okay with just holding on to a mic?
Yeah, that's fine. Is it disinfected?
Yes, it has a brand new on it, just for you. I am practicing.
What's up, everyone? Apparently people are watching. I don't know how.
People are watching. It's great.
Oh, but they don't blind in here?
No.
That's interesting.
The whole world gets to see you, man. You're on camera all the time.
It's kind of my thing.
Well, there you go.
So, I bet if we get... You're so much taller.
Okay, I can go. Hang on.
So if I get closer, it's not as bad.
Oh, look here. Look at that. How's that? Well, you're the same height now. Does it make you happy?
Makes you look like you're a giant. I'll just get closer. Oh, you're going to use that one, not that one?
Yeah. Okay, let's put it wherever I want.
Oh, I see what you're doing. Okay. Yep. Feel like, hi, I'm Tim Ferriss, and you're Kevin Rose, and we're talking.
See, isn't that cool? Hello. Okay, good.
What's funny is later I'll be back, and I'll be like, I hate that I did this because we're so far away, can't be in the stream.
Oh, because you like me closer to you.
I mean, honestly,
You comes in next to me, then you'll be right in it.
Yeah, that's right there.
I like how we're just like, we may have to put some of this right into it. Because
now, hey, you get the whole, welcome to downtown Norfolk, where things are great. You got to get in this too, because I mean,
I'm over here. Here, that's cool. Dude, man, come on.
That's it.
There you go. How's that?
This whole time, that's all we need.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you don't want? By the way, I'm taller than Marc. I just want the world to know that.
How tall are you?
6'2"3/4".
You are an inch and 3/4 taller than me. I'm pure 6'1". As the day is long. So there you go.
Is Corporate Thought is that an actual business for you?
Yeah.
You actually okay.
Corporate Thought LLC?
I didn't realize that.
It is. All four of those are real businesses. They're on
I can only see.
Well, I only own 2 of them, but there's 4 businesses.
I'm going to assume that this is picking up. Let's hope that it is.
Okay. If it doesn't,
my
audio feed.
I got this. There you go.
You have my audio feed.
All right, so I think we, I don't know how you want to do this. It's 9:18.
Yep. I usually record about an hour. But I've
heard some longer ones than that for you.
A couple, but usually they're an hour. So usually about 45 minutes, take a break, and then finish up with the last 15 minutes. But we cut and paste as we want later, or you just run it all raw through. That's cool too.
I'm going straight through, baby.
That's very Gary V of you, back from the old Thunder show. Did you ever watch those?
I didn't because
you're young. Because you're a baby.
Young and I drink Bud Light.
Well, back in the day when he started out, he had
Wine Library
TV.
Yeah.
I remember one episode he had like literally milk crates with a wooden board over it. He's got his wine out there. He's going to talk about it. And he kicked the whole freaking thing over.
Okay, so I'm going to start. I'm in this. Are you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
This is going to be cool because this is going to be a simultaneous
we're each going to ask
conversation of each other's show.
So what's interesting is like I don't follow Gary Vaynerchuk.
Okay.
I don't follow any business or marketing people. The only business content that I consume is when I'm working out. I have a Hoopla or an Overdrive account, and I tend to listen to business books.
Sure.
But as of today, I'm done with listening to business books. I'm going to go back into like novels of the past. So I just downloaded like the Adventures of Mark Twain, Huckleberry Finn, and right now I'm listening to an Iron Man book.
What's an Iron Man book?
It's the announcer for Iron Man, like Iron Man triathlons, wrote a book about the journey. So I'm like 20 minutes in.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
My point was this, is that I think a lot of people follow other people's content that is similar to theirs, right? Marketing and business content. I have this strategy called the Iron Man content strategy, which is consume the content that you want to enjoy and then dissect it and figure out how to adopt a similar principle to your life. With that being said, I think a lot of people will look at someone like a Gary or others and say, oh, I'm going to do exactly what he did. The problem is, and I like that you brought up the wine show. What was that show?
Wine Library TV.
Wine Library TV.
AKA
I think more people need to look at Gary Vaynerchuk from those days than him today, because I feel like what he did then is more practical for most people, where all this other stuff is very, very difficult for anyone. Me has a team of 30 or 40 doing all his content.
Sure.
And he'll say, well, you want to get people to, you want to get to a point where you can be like me. Well, look back, was that 30 years ago? What are you talking about? I mean,
10 years ago, 15 years ago. 15 years ago, I think. I was not living here. I just moved here 15 years ago.
Okay,
so like 04, 06, the early days of YouTube. And I think he was like one of the first. But you're right. He has a whole bunch of people. And he has a whole different way of producing content now. And really his content is different. He does put out, and he has a great deck. It's like 160 slide deck on how to create 64 pieces of content a day and still do other things.
Sure.
He gives some practical stuff. A lot of what he does now, I think, is motivational. He's more about don't sit on your ass. Don't be streaming. Don't be sitting there watching YouTube, whatever, Netflix, when you can get up and be working on your business. How to do a side hustle.
Sure.
But not the same level of practicality. How about that?
But my point is most people are at the no one in the world knows you, and you have to find something to start, which in his case was wine back when, right? You almost need to be a pioneer in these things. Well, you do need to be a pioneer, right? And then anomalies are pioneers, in my opinion. And so I think that's important. So welcome to Anomaly Nation or whatever. Welcome to the, what do you call it? The Thunderdome?
The Thunder Show was his show.
Show. What? So I said something to my wife last night. I said, welcome to the Thunderdome. Where is that from? Is that bad?
No, what was that from? That's a movie. I gotta think about it now. It's one of those things. But
is it that workout movie with Ben Stiller?
Well, here's what you're gonna promise. It could be. Yeah, the one where he had the gym. That was Dodgeball, right? But I will tell you that I don't know how your show goes, since we're recording two shows here at the same time, but my audience knows that my show notes are very detailed. So whatever it's from will be found out and will be in my show notes, because that's how we roll at Corporate Thought.
Love it.
So
what does the razor on that stand for? So I'm in Marc's office, and there's a poster of the New York Yankees, and I guess it's actually all words. Is that what that is?
So it is a poster of Old Yankee Stadium, and the entire picture is made of the names of every player who played for the New York Yankees.
That's cool.
So they're
until
all
what year? Do you know?
It's on the back. I want to say it's through 2000.
So is razor just an ad or something?
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool.
So, but yeah, the whole thing is like broken out. You can read, if you get close to it, you can read everybody's name in there.
Interesting.
Pretty cool.
So, okay, so I have a question for you. Okay, so you and I met at CrossFit a decade ago.
Yeah, I would say, probably a decade ago.
A decade ago. Now we created a relationship from there. I love relationships from situations like that, because I feel like most people if you can connect with someone in something that you love, I think that's great. Maybe we didn't love CrossFit, but I think it's.
But we did it.
And then we didn't just go to the gym. We built relationships off of that. And then
work out and go have a beer together. That's what we did.
Exactly. I think we went to like Thai food for the first time.
That might have been right.
But when I met you there, I feel like you were full-time lawyer still. Would you have been?
Yes, I was still working. If I wasn't, I was a lawyer. Yeah, I was. I think I was at a law firm here in Norfolk, which I went to after I left
Williams Mullen.
I was at Williams Mullen.
Okay, you were okay.
And so, and so that would have been the timing. And so, yes, I was still a practicing lawyer, as opposed to now when I'm a recovering lawyer.
I feel like, by the way, as I hold this microphone, like I'm a rapper or something. Like I'm like, oh, what's up? Okay, and that transition to do your own thing, was that like how
so
did that go down?
Yeah, so story on that is essentially I was an attorney. A client asked me to come on board in a non-legal role to manage a joint venture between two companies that was it was a difficult relationship. And so he said, you come in, you play peacemaker, and you kind of help it work and fix it. And so it was a cool challenge to do that. So I went in there.
The maritime industry?
In the maritime industry. So I went in there and I did that. Ultimately, I couldn't bring the deal together. I couldn't make the two parties get along. So I went back to them and said, look, one of you is going to have to buy it, and one of you is going to sell it, or we're going to get rid of it. So then I orchestrated the sale, the purchase and the sale of the business. And then I wound up on the side that bought it and running that part of the company. And I did that for quite a while, and it was fun, but I still had another itch in me, if you will. Mm-hmm. And because it still wasn't my business, it was someone else's business. I was just, kind of running the day-to-day of it. And so in the autumn of 16, literally right after Labor Day, I left. And
autumn of 2016.
2016.
Oh, it was that long. Okay.
Then so I stayed there. I was there like from 2012 to 2016, something like that. And then so in 2016, I left. And
is that the Portland, Seattle area one?
Yeah. So I was commuting out to there all the time, but I was still living here in Virginia.
Got it.
And so I left there, and that was the start. And so I restarted the business that my father had started back in 1973, and my mother had taken over. And, Zach, I always thought it was rather funny. I never, I've talked about this before, but I never thought of my parents as entrepreneurs. I just didn't. I didn't know the word as a little kid. But I'm 2 and my sister's an infant when my father basically quits his job and starts his own company. I mean, with no clients, right? Pretty ballsy move. He dies in 1982, and my mother, who's not in the business, takes over his business and builds a second business. And I never called them entrepreneurs.
And the business was what?
In maritime and shipping businesses. My father was a shipbroker. My mother was a shipbroker and a freight forwarder.
Interesting.
And I never, ever just put those labels on them. I just thought they were going to work. It was their job.
Yeah. What's interesting is people ask me a similar kind of question is like entrepreneurship in the last decade or so. And I think it's become, just like anything else, it's kind of become a buzzword.
Sure.
Right. And so because of that, you didn't grow up thinking that was something. You grew up being taught, hey, this is the world that you have to go into is do well in high school, go to college, go work for the man, whatever. That's pretty much what we were taught to do.
Sure.
To many extents. And so until I believe Shark Tank became popular, the word entrepreneurship really wasn't that thing. No, yes, Facebook was in there and stuff like that. But I don't think that it became a global phenomenon until the early 2010s, the word entrepreneurship. You're giving me this.
Well, I think I got a few years on you, a decade on you. So I think it was I think that it certainly has made it more mainstream. I think that and I don't know what if 35 you are. I don't know I know I'm a Gen Xer. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I'm technically a millennial.
You're technically a
millennial. But
millennial.
I do not act like a millennial, Mike.
But I think that's where I want to say that things like technology, the gig economy, other things have allowed people to get more into being an entrepreneur easier. My parents were entrepreneurs at a time that you can't say it was too easy. First of all, forming a company, we didn't even have LLCs when they were,
right.
The ease of forming a company wasn't there. Everything was still done by mail. I mean, my gosh, when they got their first fax, when my mother got her first fax machine, she was borrowing the guy whose office was next door's fax machine, right?
Resourceful.
Yeah, resourceful. But it was like now we don't even think about how this technology has allowed us to, on a dime, start a business.
Even something like we're doing right now.
This,
like recording something like this. So I have a journalism degree, graduated from West Virginia University in 2007. I mean, we were using tape.
Yeah.
Tape. Now, it was recording on tape. I don't know the exact type of high 8 tape, something like that. But like we literally wouldn't record digitally. And so when we wanted to edit, we had to put that tape into something like a recorder and literally re-edit onto a new piece of tape for something. And then I think to get that then on the internet, because we had the internet then, I'm thinking because video on like Facebook wasn't a thing yet. And also remember how expensive it was. And do you remember like YouTube back in the day when like you could only upload so big of a file unless you had so many? Like it's so easy now. Like, but things have changed. I mean, it's so much easier now. I mean, you can get terabytes of stuff on Dropbox for like $4.
So I became the editor-in-chief of my college weekly. So
Okay.
I was a news editor, and then I became the editor-in-chief.
Rutgers?
No.
Where'd you go to school?
My undergrad was at Widener in Pennsylvania.
And then, do you have Rutgers?
Rutgers is my law degree.
I knew it.
Yeah.
Good memory.
Rutgers is law degree. So we used to go and, in the beginning, it was still typing like literally on a typewriter. But then we typed into the computer. We would save it on those 3.5 inch discs with the little metal slide thing. We'd bring them. We would drive
the floppy
them.
disk.
Yes, they weren't. Those are the firmer ones. So yeah, not the big 5 1/4.
Oh, yeah.
And then we would drive them over to the printer. He would load them in his system. They would like fix it all up. Then they would print it, and then we would literally, I'm not kidding, with an X-Acto knife, they would cut them out, and we would hand lay out all of the pages. And we would do that on, I want to say it was Tuesdays, and we would work late on Tuesday. Make literally where the photo went, where everything went, doing the full layout of each page of the 8 to 12 page newspaper that would come out every Friday. And then on Thursdays they would print them, and on Fridays we would distribute.
Wow,
that's the way it was.
And now you just do everything on the phone.
And now you can do it on the phone, or like my kids. It's funny they don't understand Microsoft, like the Microsoft Office suite. If Microsoft doesn't do something, I'm telling you, this next generation is going to say goodbye to it, because they do not like any of the Office products. They don't understand why. They're used to Google Docs. They're used to being able to like share a document and be real time making changes with someone else. And Microsoft doesn't do that. And they don't understand email at all, but they really don't understand.
So I haven't had, so the last time I had to touch a Microsoft product was for my book.
Okay.
I had to, and I didn't want to buy it. So I was able to get Microsoft Word for like a 30-day period. And the reason, because it was like $400 or something. And I was just like, I have to do this for the book. And so I used a different Word. I don't know what the word is. A Word
processor.
That would be the word to write it.
Okay.
Called Scrivener.
Love Scrivener.
Right. And so, but the editor edited it on Word, and then the publisher required it in Word as well. And so I had to get the free trial for like 30 days and have the editor finish in time. It ended up working, but you're right. It was a pain in the tail. You're sending files. There was a mix up somewhere in there where we thought one file was actually the right one, but it was actually one edit before that. So there was 190 edits missed.
Oh,
maybe even more. And that's a pain. So like where Google Docs, you can just see where the person's writing and doing stuff. Microsoft Word doesn't have that yet.
If they do, I don't know how it's set up, but as you know, in Google Docs, you can just basically give access to someone, and you could be co-editing a document, round robining a document, simultaneously. It's if everything doesn't go that way, what's I'm not suggesting that Microsoft is going anywhere, except I think it's one of those things. It's like, does your grandma still have like AOL?
Well, I think 4.5 million people do.
Yeah, so those 4.5 million will be the ones who are still using Microsoft Office eventually.
So do you think that, so whenever I hear something like that, I like really try to dissect it and figure out, like, do you think it's because they don't want to copycat that process that Google has done? Why do you think they haven't adopted something that seems so easy and practical to you and I, the consumer?
So I think part of this goes back to the idea of what people have invested in, right? They have put millions, if not billions, into certain lines of code and into certain systems. Mm-hmm. And I would equate that to why we as a country are so far behind others on things like you stop and take a photo in the middle. Multitasking doesn't work, Zach.
I learned that from you a long time ago.
It really doesn't. But I think, so why are some what we call developing countries so much more advanced than us in their cell phone towers, their network capability? It's because they didn't have copper. They weren't trying to use antiquated systems until they were long gone. And we are stuck, and companies are sometimes stuck in, I put all this money in, and so I can't stop using what I spent all this money to develop, even though they should scrap it and start again.
What's interesting is I learned about a process similar to this when I went to Kitco Fiber. Are you familiar with them?
No, I'm not.
They do, I guess, all the fiber optics in ships. And what happens is when a ship is built and then it becomes commissioned, is that the right word?
Sure.
Like a military ship.
Military ship's commissioned.
Becomes commissioned. Basically, as soon as it goes out, it then needs to be retrofitted with new active whatever the thing is, right? And so they go in and they do that, I guess, which was interesting to me because it's like, well, what are they doing the last 10, 15 years? But that's, I guess, the point that you're making is like, hey, you're so invested in this. So then, like, but that's that's difficult though. Like, how do you get around that? Because things take forever. Things are constantly changing, and
you can't future-proof things. There becomes a point you can't. But there becomes a question as to what point have you either gotten your value out of it or done what have you, and said, okay, it's time to scrap that, rather than continuing to cling to yesterday technology or yesterday business. Look, especially now, we have lots of things in the news. We have a crisis that seems to be worldwide and is worldwide. Are people going out and picking up a physical newspaper and opening up? I bet you not. I bet you they're all getting their news online, or most of them are getting their news online. The New York Times is got more people subscribing and viewing their pages online than in their print. So at which point in time are we going to say, you know what? I know you have millions of dollars tied up in printing presses, but the truth of the matter is people just don't read their newspapers that way anymore.
I agree. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that hasn't happened yet then?
Because they're clinging to their capital investment.
Is it?
Don't you think that the capital has got a lot to do with it?
I don't know. Like, I think it's interesting when people are like, I'm so sad that XYZ newspaper is closing. And I'm like, but you didn't read it for 10 years. So what are you sad about? Right? Like, I just, like, it boggles my mind. So, okay. So then when the TV stations go, are you going to be sad at that? Like, I just, because people are already talking about how they don't watch these things anyway. Right. And so those same people are the ones that then are posting online, like, I'm so sad that this local newspaper went, but it's like, well, you don't read them anyway. So, like, what are you sad about?
Well, it's a fair question, but I think it's because the newspaper is therefore not delivering. People are still interested in the content. It's the means of delivery. It's the delivery method.
Right. They've never figured out how to figure out 2020 or 2010 in the digital world, really, right? And so it's like, I've always said, like, content, and I look at content as a different way. I think the word content is the wrong word. I think you should look at it as like entertainment. We are entertaining people, right? Even if it's news, like, no one's going to read this thing if they're not entertained, right? And so this piece of content, this piece of entertainment, they have not been able to figure out, and other things before them have not been able to figure out how to stay afloat in these times when others have been able to absolutely annihilate the world of attention.
So I hate corporate type language and fake words that are made up for corporate things, but
the name of one of his businesses is Corporate Thought.
Right. Well, that's on purpose. That's the joke. That's the little inherent joke to myself, because I don't like corporate speak. But there's this word, this that I hear all the time now. So based on what you said, entertainment, called, and you've probably heard this, is infotainment. So I think that they're suggesting the blending of news and entertainment together, or information content, to your point, as entertainment, and they call it infotainment. That is, I don't like the word. So
yeah, I don't either. And the reason I don't is because as of today, March 16th, 2020, the press, the media, still has First Amendment rights. Right. And so that means that they are supposed to provide a very unbiased, fact-checked thing, which is different than, you can take that how you will. Right. But that is where it is. Infotainment, I get what they're saying too, but I believe we're now seeing, so that's what's supposed to happen. That's what I was taught in journalism school, right? Here are the facts. This is how you report. You don't give your opinion unless you're on an opinion show.
Right.
And I do feel like that line has been thinned.
Yes.
Right. And to me, if they're still going to, and I'm out of that world now, I'm out of that traditional world now. I believe that if the press is going to have First Amendment rights, we need to get back to that world, right? Mm-hmm. Because that, to me, that's where everything is getting skewed the wrong way, is that we're opinionated, giving opinions on things now, where people are tuning in saying, oh, forever, I think this is the way that it's gone. And it was facts. And then as the world of the internet has evolved and people have gotten on and provided their opinions, now that world is skewing in and we're not getting clear and defined information. And the story that I love to tell with this is Ryan Lochte in the Olympics a few years ago.
Okay.
If we screwed up that from a journalistic standpoint,
right,
then what the heck is going to happen when there's a real problem, right? And so that, if you guys don't remember, Ryan Lochte was the Olympic swimmer who apparently got in a fight, got
in
super
Brazil.
drunk in Brazil and lied about a story. And the press took his word for it, did no fact checking behind it, and just wanted to be first to air, basically, which is what a lot of these people do right now, right? Which is what I was not taught, which is what I do not believe in, right? You get your facts straight, and then you put it out there because you don't want to have to backtrack 7 days later, which is what they had to do.
Yep.
Saying, oh, well, by the way, we didn't do anything except take this on the surface of what this person told us. And that's the problem.
It
is that you don't see journalists telling the real story anymore. They say, here, this is, and then they don't do anything else. All they had to do, I mean, they could have done probably 2 hours worth of research and figured out the real answer.
Yeah. But again, I think that the news industry is still trying to figure out where and how to harness technology, right? So like I said, people, if I were today still buying a daily newspaper and getting my news from there, with the speed upon which news is changing, I would miss half the information.
When was the last time you read a newspaper?
A physical newspaper?
Yes.
Ooh, that's a good one. I think I picked up a USA Today that was in front of a hotel room a few months ago.
When was the last time you physically bought a newspaper?
Oh, physically bought a newspaper? Yeah, no, not in years. Now, I do subscribe and pay for subscriptions to online newspapers.
The last time I bought a newspaper was late December 2018, for the sole purpose of putting Christmas ornaments with that newspaper.
Oh, okay.
And the only reason I know that is because I remember tweeting, because I put this in the show notes. I remember tweeting a picture being like, this is the last thing I bought. It was like $2 too, by the way. And then this year, when I put Christmas ornaments back into it, I was like, oh, look, that's when I bought the newspaper last.
That's funny. So that's like, they used to say,
that's
like,
what they're used for.
They use the old newspaper to wrap fish, was the story, right? So this is your version of wrapping fish, is wrapping Christmas ornaments.
Which that sounds disgustingly dirty, by the way.
Wrapping fish, yeah. And this time, I don't know, that's the saying. I assume that at some point people used to wrap their fish in newspaper.
I guess. What do you think about content, though? Like, I mean, we're on this content talk right now, right? Where like what grabs your attention? Is it people? Is it topics? Is it headlines? Like, where, like,
for a long time, I mean, literally since the early days of the internet, I shouldn't say like back when it was just being used by universities and by the military, but let's say when it became a consumer interface, I think people started talking about content and what content was. But then it became the question of developing of good content. So, in the market cycles of the moment, which are crazy and in upheaval because of this COVID-19 scare, I've been watching, for instance, certain stocks, and I watch a company like Disney get trashed one day and its stock price fall rapidly. I said, wow, that's a buying opportunity. Because like, oh no, because the Magic Kingdom is closed. I said, Disney's not about its amusement parks at this point. It's not about its cruise line at this point. It is a monster content company. After its acquisition of Fox, it now has the world's biggest movie collection. It has so many things that we tune into. Now, maybe people aren't tuning into ESPN at the moment, which they own, because of the fact that there's no sports on. But as a general proposition, frankly, if people are hunkered down at home, then Disney's content is being more readily played. So
they even released Frozen 2 3 months early.
Simply that, right?
So you said it's not about sports. It's not about the boats, the cruise ships. It's not about the parks. But could you really define all three of those things as one word, as experiences? And could you really say that the online stuff is also an experience? And so really they're in the, I think we would always say that Disney is in the experience business.
Sure.
But those things are just on hold right now. You're basically just pressing pause. I mean, do you really think that Disney, I don't. I mean, they're already starting to things that are postponed. They're already starting to plan new dates.
Oh, sure. No, I'm not suggesting that those things won't be back with I'm simply saying that when the price is being pushed down because they've closed their parks, I think that's a market reaction that is silly, because in fact the majority of what they do is still readily available, is all I meant.
What I thought you were saying is that someone then is providing content saying, oh, the reason why you shouldn't buy this is because it's a long-term play.
Oh, of course.
Right? I mean, you really think that Disney isn't going to figure this stuff out?
No, of course they will.
So
Disney's got it better than I've always said, why don't we take Disney technology and bring it to airports? Because it seems to me that they can scan you and get a pretty good scan on whether you get in or out of their parks pretty well. And TSA would be smart to replicate their technology.
Do you think that's going back to the thing that we were talking about before with adoption of, or the investment of things that you adopted before and you're just holding on to that?
Well, I think the government has certainly, in the name of using new technology, it is always amazing to me how antiquated the government seems to be and how far behind government websites and other things are.
Disney could buy something today and release it tomorrow.
And they could do it, and they could turn it on a dime so much faster. So the intersection of public and private, I think, and we, coming from a corporate world and coming from a place where I was a lawyer, the idea of public-private partnerships, it was a very big buzzword a decade ago. The truth of the matter is that the government would do well to more often partner with private industry than they do. I think the innovation is coming in new companies, and the ideas are there, and the government needs to get behind those companies as opposed to continuing to prop up yesterday technology.
I mean, you could just look at something as simple as a road. So I used to have an office on Grammy Street down the street where we're recording this. And it was 5,000 square feet. It was kind of on the main street in downtown Norfolk. And right in front of us, there was a hotel being developed. And they developed this, 26-floor hotel within 24 months or less, probably. And before they started construction, the 6 months before that, it took a public road 6 months to get fixed. A road took 6 months.
Yeah.
And a 30-floor building takes 24 months. And so that alone, I mean, you see people just sitting there, they're always smoking their cigarettes, and you got 16 people to dig one hole, and you're like, come on, guys.
It's got to be better.
It's got to be better, but that's kind of what we're talking about here, right? Is you don't see, you see these buildings get flipped so quickly, where this other public stuff takes forever, and you're just like, come on, what are we doing with that? Why is that still?
It doesn't. There are better ways, but I think that we run into a problem of those not coming to fruition for some reason. I wanted to go back. When we were talking about content and we were talking about experiences, because I think experiences is an important thing. So one reason why I started Corporate Thought and what we've done with Corporate Thought since is because while technology is important, and we've spent this last 30 minutes talking about technology and about how it has made life easier, I also firmly believe that technology has a negative effect of making us perhaps more isolated and more lonely. Because one of the reasons you said to me, "Hey, we can do this over the computer," and I said, "Hey, I'd rather do it face to face," is for me, face to face interactions are so much more important than just living in an online space. And people are walking around with their heads buried in their smartphones all day. They're missing the world around them. They're not connecting as well. So what we try to do with Corporate Thought is bring people into rooms together.
Love that. And I agree, right? So that's why the only reason I was like, hey, let's do this over the internet is because the system that I typically do made that way, right? And made it easier, right? So and that's why I agreed to doing this, right? And so it was a little difficult because we're recording 2 of these at once.
But we got it.
Right? We got it, right? I think, so as I'm coaching clients, some of the things I tell them is you have to do in-person things, right? It's not just, be great on Facebook. Don't just be great on LinkedIn. It's like, no, there's a collection, a cornucopia of all these things together that matter. And I do believe that the in-person side of it is incredibly important. I remember when the cell phone came out with the FaceTime feature, and I was like, oh my God, finally something where you can see someone and have real interpersonal, miles away, interpersonal relationships again with people. Because I think what you're saying is you lose that when all you're doing is texting people, or like go to a family gathering, right? And you see everyone's on their cell phones and you're like, why am I even here if you guys aren't going to be in this? Like, get off your damn phone.
Yeah.
Right. It's like this, like, I'm not here to do that. And I remember this, and this was actually about a half a mile away from here. You were introducing me to Jordan Watkins about 10 years ago. And Jordan Watkins is at, what's that company called?
She's at the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, VEDP.
Okay. And you were introducing me to her, I think because of some of the stuff we were doing to Start Norfolk at the time, probably because there was some international flair and feel to that.
Makes sense.
And in the middle of the conversation, I, kind of like what I did a couple minutes ago, pulled out my phone and I was looking at a calendar, and it was specific to the conversation. Mm-hmm. But I remember you, Mark, saying like, dude, that was so rude. And I was like, well, I was in the conversation and I was doing something on my phone that was towards the conversation. But then, and since then, I've really made a conscious effort to be like, yo, don't pull out your phone just to pull out your phone for something. If you're going to, even tell the person, hey, I'm looking that thing up, so it doesn't look like you're not active in the conversation.
Right.
And I think that happens a lot, right? And so I wasn't trying to be rude in that situation. I know it's ridiculous, and I'm thinking about that, but like, it's because you told me afterwards, like, hey, like that was rude, and I was like, oh, but I was looking at a calendar or something. I don't even remember what I was looking at, but I was looking at something specific to what we were doing. Sure. It's like, be present in the moment is really what we're getting at, right? Is be present, enjoy the experience that you're doing, and consume that. Just because you can have 35 different things going on at once, consume that one thing and enjoy it and be in the moment here. Right. So like, I'm trying to, like, as we're sitting here, like, pull in everything, right? So we, like, out here, we have like the road and things are happening here, like, pull in everything and enjoy the moment that you're in, because life is short.
Well, I think you're right. I think that,
knocking on wood.
We'll do it to you. I think that this question of being present, of being attentive, of what we talk about. And I think this is why I said, and the name of the thing is Corporate Thought, because it's a joke on, I'm against this corporate speak, because I feel that corporate speak to some extent is acronyms, is shortcuts, is reducing our conversation. One thing I like that you do, Zach, is you post questions. See, I'm being positive about you. You post questions sometimes on LinkedIn, right? And I'm going to pick at it in a minute because I can't help but pick at things. But I love that you do that. I love that you ask that you put that out there. And I remember a while back you asked, what do you say to people when you first meet them at, and I hate the word networking, at, let's call it events, right? If you would come into contact with somebody, what's the first thing you ask them? And I remember you asked that, and I know, and my answer to you was I asked them what they're reading. But the majority of people still today say, well, what do you do?
Oh, what do you do for a living?
Yeah, it's terrible, because what if they
it's
don't
so irrelevant.
I want to know the person in front of me on a more personal level. I want to understand what they're about. Whether I do business with you in the future, whether there's an opportunity that will come, but I prefer to know the person. And what I hate is at like the conferences and the conventions and what have you, and you have these networking breaks where, you know, people are standing around with cups of coffee and they're literally looking over your shoulder towards someone who they think might be more important, or they don't are, you know, they're there to exchange business cards, and like this, like, you know, 3-minute business card exchange dance.
Yeah.
And that's not getting to know people.
Yeah. So my favorite question is very similar to yours, and it's very easily adoptable. It's, what are you watching on Netflix?
Sure. Okay.
Right. And the reason why is because when you put data behind, so first of all, people think that's the most ridiculous first question ever. They're like, what are you watching on Netflix? Yeah. What do you watch on Netflix? Here's why. Netflix has 139 million subscribers.
Sure.
Adults are watching, I think the number is 11 plus hours of content, or consuming 11 plus hours of content a day.
That's insane.
Right?
That's
Of which, when you have a Netflix binge, which they hate that word binge, they want you to call it marathon viewing, by the way.
Really?
Their average marathon viewing is over 3.5 hours. So I'm just taking some data along with my question and positioning it to say, if you are watching, if you're one of those adults, which you are, and you have Netflix, which most people do, and you're consuming a ton of content, you probably won't talk about that.
Right.
So how could I talk to someone about that thing? Well, it could be sports, the Yankees poster. We could talk about sports for hours. It could be golf. It could be Ironmans. It could be a book, whatever it is. But it's how do you genuinely create a relationship with someone on the things that they've been consuming regularly, right? And I love hearing about it, right? Because like the thing that I just finished, Chris Ruddick, who's been on the show before, had told me to watch Breaking Bad.
Oh, great.
So I started watching that, and I marathon viewed that thing very, very quickly. It became my number one show. And then afterwards, I was talking to him again. He was like, hey, you should watch Saul, Better Call Saul. So I literally just finished Saul yesterday, season 4 of that. And so it's, you know, if I'll watch it every once in a while, but then I could talk about that thing, right? It could be you with bike riding, or why is like the MS ride, like why is that important to you? Like where have you, so there's a huge map of the world, of the flat world next to us. And so we could talk about that, places that you've been to. Like, it doesn't need to be, what do you do for a living? Because you're hoping that the person will get that elevator pitch out perfectly, that you are the right person that wants to consume what that person is saying, when all you have to do is really just invest in that person and the relationship, rather than, oh, I sell, you know, life insurance, and then you hate that person.
Right.
When what you don't realize is that person actually has strong ties to something that you do, and you guys could have built an incredible relationship together. But instead, you basically were like, screw it, I don't like that you do this. I don't like that world. So therefore, I hate you. But that's what people do. And it's the first impression syndrome.
They make that 30-second judgment about how that person can, it's not even impact their life. That's not what they're really doing. Is it, can they sell to that person or not? And they move on. And
which is stupid, because you're not going to make a sale anyway on the first date. It takes several steps, right? When I wrote Anomaly, the numbers were 5 to 7. I've heard numbers at 20 now. I mean, like, people buy from people that they like. They don't like you if you're trying to sell them on the first date. So I don't know why people try to do that. It annoys me. It annoys you. It's stupid.
I completely agree. And that's where what I want to do is I want to bring people into a room. I want to get an opportunity for them to get to know each other, to talk about everything. But when anyone comes on my podcast, they know that eventually we may talk a little bit about what they do, but it's rarely how the conversation opens, right? Because I want to hear more about their origin story, about where they grew up, about what, you know, like you said, what are they watching? What are they filling their time with? So I'm, by the way, the complete opposite of that 11 hours. I certainly consume 11 hours of content a day, if not more, but very little to none of it is in front of a TV set. I usually watch like For me, binging or marathon watching is to get through one 30-minute episode of something and maybe start the next one before I'm falling asleep. And that's usually the last thing I do. I'm more about reading articles, watching.
I think all of that is in that 11 hours, by the way,
Okay,
right? So it's
enough.
like podcasts.
Good.
It's not just Netflix, and I get it. Not everyone is watching those many hours. It's an average, right? And so some people are, some people wake up and start watching the news. Some people go to work and they have a 2-hour commute, right? Like I ask people all the time, like if you have that long, or I'm interested in people who have crazy commutes. What do they do at that time, right? Because I feel like there's so much wasted time there that they could be listening and educating themselves on other things, right? So like when I'm swimming at the YMCA, won't be swimming there for a few weeks apparently, but I have a waterproof iPod shuffle and I download podcasts and I put them on there. And so I listen to that. Or when I'm riding my bike, I download books and I listen to those. And so it's like, don't just ride the bike, do something else with it.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's super valuable.
For me, all my long distance driving is always, well, every once in a while it's an audiobook like you're talking about, but a lot of it is podcasts.
Yeah.
For that same idea, same reason, but it tends to be, and not necessarily in a quote business space. Like you said, you're not reading business authors anymore.
Yeah.
It can be, thought leaders, ideas. I think that's where there's so much out there. That's the other thing that I think is very important. I think within sectors, and you're not in any one necessary sector, though we talk about that, but say my core business in maritime space, right? So that pretty much puts me in rooms full of other people in logistics and transportation and maritime on a regular basis. But you know what? Those ideas, they've been around. Whatever they want to talk about, it's the same ideas over and over again.
Well, your boy, Ramit Sethi,
yes,
said, I've read his book, not the second version, but
the original, How Teach You to Be Rich.
How Teach You to Be Rich. I think it's the most underrated financial book out there, in my opinion. He's not as big as some of the other guys, but it's the most underrated financial book out there. And he said something very interesting in it, where he was like, "Look, buy a $20 book. If you get one nugget out of it, it was worth it." And I always thought that was interesting. So, like with everything that I do, I'm trying to find one little nugget. And that's it. And I think that's super valuable because, yes, I can listen to an entire book and maybe I get more. But all I'm looking for is that one little thing. And that's it. And there are other things that he said in his book that are clearly valuable. But that notion of looking for that one thing is so valuable to me.
But I think that we often only look in the pond where we spend all of our time. And when you get out of that pond and you look somewhere else, so I spend time talking to people in my world is mostly business to business. Yeah. But when I get to spend time with people in business to consumer worlds, if I talk to a pastry chef, if I talk to a real estate agent, if I talk to a hairdresser about their business, there are things that they do in their business that there are those nuggets, right? Now I have to have my mind open enough to pay attention to what that might be, but there are ideas that they have that can be adopted in any business, and there are ideas I have that they can adopt. But I think that's part of the trick, is getting out of playing in the same pond. So when I was a lawyer, lawyers go to lawyer conferences. Gosh, can you imagine how much more boring thing in the world than to go to a conference?
The statute of the Kansas, Oklahoma diplomacy of the United States. I'm just literally reading a map.
Okay. So, I started going to the conferences where my potential clients would be. And I wanted to hear what they were talking about, because I said, okay, if I'm going to be a better lawyer for them, then I want to understand the nuts and bolts of their business and what are they concerned about. Now I'm no longer a lawyer, but I do the same thing. I don't want to just concentrate in that core space. I want to go spend time with other people in other industries, because understanding that gives me a broader perspective on the world.
Okay, so I also believe that a lot of people are trying to get on a bunch of people's podcasts, and they go on these places where every single guest says the exact same thing. Right. And so I'm constantly thinking of things of how can I be different?
Sure.
Right.
So your anomaly.
So you anomalize these things. Right. And so what you're saying is, don't go to a bunch of lawyer conferences. Don't go on a bunch of podcasts where the guests are saying or are the same type of person, nothing's going to stand out from that. And so you have to find places that might seem ridiculous, but then you're the one that is different than everyone else, right? So maybe you are a lawyer and you start talking to dog podcasts, which seems ridiculous, but you find something practical that you can pull them in.
Yeah.
And that is what will get other people to see you, not you and the 17,000 other lawyers that are talking on all the other lawyer podcasts. You all sound the same.
Yeah.
And it's not going to move you forward. And so you have to find ways that will get things get attention.
And that's exactly, and not just get attention,
Man,
but also
how many people just go to lawyer conferences? It's stupid.
It is.
You should go to other conferences, and like you're saying, that have nothing to do with what your actual trade is.
And in fairness, their argument, it will be, well, I get my continuing legal education. Fine, do that, and then still go to other conferences.
Agreed.
And go. So if you look at the types of people that come onto Corporate Thought on the Corporate Thought podcast, I've had people from all different kinds of businesses. If there's a single thread that runs through them, they're either entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial spirited, or another form of a thought leader. That is the only thread. But from what they do for a living, from how they put food on their table, they all come from different walks of life. They come from different business settings. And I learn, I hope the audience learns, but I learn from each one of them something. One of the reasons why I spend so much time on the show notes is because they say something. I'm like, ooh, I need to know more about that. And then I start going down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and I try to curve it back into a usable document, but so that someone could be in their car commuting, listening to my podcast and saying, I want to know those things, but I don't want them to get in an accident and try to scribble on a note as they're driving, but rest assured it's in a show note. Useful tips and tricks and whatever it could be.
You drink coffee?
Too much.
But just this mushroom coffee stuff?
No. I drink regular coffee, but I'm really interested in nootropics. I'm really interested in
nootropics. What's that? Is that the brand?
No. It's like, like these ideas of what things that might trigger your brain. So in the mushroom coffee is got lion's mane or chaga or both.
Is that
they're kinds of mushrooms.
Okay. So is that like a stimulant high type of thing?
No.
It's not like an illegal drug and that
It's not
that kind of mushroom.
Not that kind of mushroom. We're not talking about a psychedelic. Although I'm very interested in that. I've read I always get his name. It's Michael. It's either Pollan or Poland. He's an author. He wrote Omnivore's Dilemma, one of my favorite books. But he wrote a lot about food and where our food comes from. And he wrote several books like Omnivore's Dilemma, In Defense of Food.
Now, omnivore is what? Can't remember.
What's an omnivore?
Yeah.
You eat everything. You're not a vegetarian. You're not just a carnivore. You're an omnivore. You eat both meat and veg.
Carnivore, vegetarian, omnivore. Got it.
Okay. So
brain fart, because I wasn't drinking the 4-sigmatic mushroom elixir, whatever.
There you go. But that stuff is anyway. Michael wrote a book called How to Change Your Mind.
Okay.
I highly recommend. Do
you eat meat?
Right now, on occasion.
Okay.
I'd say I'm like 85% vegetarian.
Uh-huh.
So I did a full month of being a vegan.
Actual vegan?
Actual vegan for a month.
So
month
no
of
eggs,
January. No eggs, no dairy.
Uh-huh.
I didn't find it to be that hard, actually. Yeah. There were times, especially out and about, it was more difficult than cooking meals at home. But I enjoyed it. But I am highly interested in how food and things we ingest have an effect on us. And I will say that lion's mane and chaga, taken through mushroom coffee or just drinking in an elixir, it's a stimulant in that my brain feels like I'm on fire. The amount of what I produce in a short period of time, I'm not sluggish. I'm not tired. I'm
still drink?
Boom, boom, boom,
you
boom,
still
boom.
Drinking that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Love it. I try to drink one every day.
Drink alcohol.
Oh, drink alcohol. Yes, I drink alcohol, which is the opposite. It's depressant, but I don't start my day with alcohol, Zach.
So,
but yes,
I wasn't saying you were.
I like a beer. I like wine. I like hard liquor, but I don't.
But you didn't. Okay, so that's interesting. So in late 2019, the vegan vegetarian world went crazy because of Game Changers, that documentary.
Very interesting
Watched
movie.
it?
Yes.
So I have been following a guy named Rich Roll.
Oh yeah,
for a long time.
the Rich Roll podcast.
Rich Roll podcast. Listen to that sometimes. I like him as an individual. He is a vegan ultra athlete.
Oh yeah, ultra endurance runner.
And crazy story. If you've never heard of him, check the show notes. Rich Roll podcast, richroll.com probably. And several other people in the Ironman triathlon world. So I grew up as an athlete. Then went to college, and basically athleticism went everywhere. And
You're getting back to it though, man.
When I got rid of my office, basically, I would say within 4 months, fitness became another thing that I really wanted to get back to.
Okay.
And I've worked out every day since January 2nd, 2018.
That's awesome.
Some are definitely harder workouts than others.
Yep.
Right. But in that, I've always followed these people who seem to have some sort of vegetarian, vegan lifestyle. When that movie came out in last year, 2019,
sometime. Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is, and so the way it's a documentary about veganism, but the key to it isn't that I feel like all the other movies, all the other documentaries have been about how the world is going to be affected from the vegan lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is about how athletes can perform amazingly on this type of lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that hooked me. I was like, So then like that Monday, I watched it like a Friday. That Monday, I only ate meat 3 times that next week. Then the next week after that, 3 times. And then the next 2 weeks after that, it was 1 time and then 1 time. And since November 15th of last year, 2019, I haven't had meat. So I'm pushing like 4 months. Actually, today might be it. 4 months of not eating meat at all.
But
I'll still have
dairy.
I will. So I've moved. So no, I won't eat eggs in themselves. Occasionally there'll be something that has an egg in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll still have cheese. From a milk perspective standpoint, I moved to oat milk.
Mm-hmm.
But cheese would be the only thing at this point that I've had, and that's moving out as well.
I think the way I would relate the movies is most movies seem to be, so some like animal cruelty, like those kind of issues. Game Changers you're right, is very much about athletic performance. And I think it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating that 16 members of the Tennessee Titans are vegans. And not just special teams like the kicker. I mean, like, right. Like
this offensive lineman.
Yeah, I say big freaking guys are like it's.
Well, there's a guy in there that's like the world record for squats or something.
Yeah. It's really
Olympic athletes. Scott Jurek, you probably know.
Yeah, exactly. Runner,
big time runner. But it got me thinking of this Four Sigmatic, which is the brand.
That's the brand. I love how you're plugging. Well, that's good. Maybe they'll want to advertise on the show someday. But they make some really cool products. I learned about them from being an avid listener of Tim Ferriss's podcast.
Is it just what?
So go ahead, pick it up. They've got so one of them is instant coffee mixed with mushrooms. That's the mushroom coffee. Then they make.
You mix this with coffee?
Nope. It's got instant. It's like Nescafe and mushrooms. Just mix it with water.
Interesting.
Hot water. And then the elixir is just it. They make one that's got.
So this is 7 ounces. This is like a normal
cup of coffee.
Interesting. And do you filter it in a?
That is just instant coffee. You ever use instant coffee?
Not in a long time.
Okay, so it's just instant coffee. Just mix it with water. No filters, no anything.
Just hot. Okay, cool.
It just melts down. But you can. There's other ones. I'll give you some to try, and then maybe you'll give me some feedback what you think.
I've heard of it. I've been wanting to do it. Do you buy that online?
I buy it online. You can buy it in Whole Foods too, but I buy it online. They have different ones. They have one with matcha. They have all sorts of kinds of blends.
So what's interesting is since that day, I probably never in my adulthood felt better.
Yep.
Which is very interesting. I also stopped drinking alcohol, and I also ran a marathon, so I was training in there. So there's some other things in there. But I did
You just ran the marathon.
I did a marathon a few weeks ago, yeah. And so I had done an Ironman 70.3 last summer.
That's what they call it? Since they're a half?
Yeah.
Is that what they call it? Okay.
Yeah. So a mile, 2 swim, 56 bike, and a half marathon.
Yep.
All consecutively. And so during that, for months, I hadn't drank either. I was intermittent fasting every day, a 10-6.
So how do you like that?
I think the key to that. So hold on. So
Yeah.
What was interesting is during that I was fit, but not to the extent of now. And so it seemed like the only thing that really changed was taking meat out. And I'm like, it's just PR every day almost. It's like ridiculous. And so it's really, really interesting. So last week I started, I'm doing the same Ironman in June, and it's 13 weeks away now. Last week was the first week of training. I did more last week in my training for the first week than I did any other training week for this last year.
Okay.
And I was crushing times, which is interesting. So like my best last year, I did the loop at the trail the other day.
Okay. Yeah.
So we have this trail by our house called the Great Dismal Swamp Trail. It usually took me about an hour and 30 seconds to do bear to bear.
Okay.
I did it in 56 minutes yesterday or two days ago.
Mm-hmm.
So 4 minute PR. And I wasn't doing that even close to last year. Yes, there's a lot of things, progression. I get it. But like, I wasn't riding my bike a lot before that. And so, so it's interesting. Fasting. So I did a 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. fast, which means I could eat during that time, but not in the other times.
Okay.
The key to me is don't consume as soon as you wake up. But the real big thing of that is you don't nightly snack, which is where I think a lot of people screw up.
Yeah, that before you go to bed kind of a little, or late night in front of the TV, watching your Netflix for 11 hours, or you're binge watching, whatever.
Yeah, so I mean, it seemed to be fine, but like, I don't know, like it's very interesting what's happening without meat in my body right now.
That's cool. I like I said, for me, I did the full on vegan for January. With one of my daughters did it with me.
People think it's so hard too, and it's not whatever. It's easy.
It is. There's like for her as a teenager, I think she was missing certain things like pizza and stuff like that. But we, and both of us don't want the fake.
So what's on that? The cheese is the only thing that's really bad about
that? The cheese is the bad thing on that. But what we did was we caramelized onions until they were like this beautiful like slather. We put it on pizza dough, and then we put like tomato sauce, and then we made our own pesto without Parmesan using cashews. And we made it. I'm not going to suggest it was pizza. It was flatbread. I'm a pizza purist, but it was really good.
I think that people should not. So like the Impossible Whopper and things like that. Like I actually think it tastes pretty good. Okay. And I think that meat like that or meat replacement things like that taste good. Where I think people go wrong is saying that it is a meat replacement or it is, this is a burger. It's not. I don't think that you should go into it. It's its own thing. It has some things that might be similar, but I think that if you're going into it thinking that you're going to get this, bomb ass steak, like it's not that. No. But honestly, I haven't felt bloated probably in months. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, it's just you felt great that month, I bet.
Oh, I did, and I'd say I'm still mostly. I have steered away from meat. There are times when
I'm terrified to even try it right now because I think I'd be totally sick.
But it's and a lot of people talk about that they get sick the first time they have.
I mean, there's I just ran a marathon. Like to me, that's ridiculous. Like I would have never thought that I could have done that, and now I'm sitting there going okay, well, when's the next one? Right? I'm having so it's interesting how this domino effect happens of these things, right?
So is the next Ironman a full or another half?
It's a half. This is loosely an excuse. The problem with a full Ironman is just a time commitment.
Sure.
Right. And so right now the average is 10 to 13 hours a week of training. What people don't realize in that is then there's still a ton, still got to put bread on the table and you got to make money and you got to run a business and all that kind of stuff. So I'm working out mostly in the morning, but you're almost doubling that. So you're working 24 hours to get to the Ironman ready.
Okay.
And then there's this other thing that people won't talk about or don't think about, which is recovery.
Yep.
And there's a lot of time invested in things like that as well.
Yeah.
That, look, I'm going to probably do one. And I probably could do one pretty quickly. right? I just did a marathon. I can swim it right now. The bike right now would be the hardest part because of saddle time. And you know that, right? I mean, I used to not get hurt at 50 miles. Now I was riding yesterday, 2 days ago, and I was at 24 miles, and I was like, okay, I'm sore, right? Like, you can physically go more, but your body is sore from sitting on the saddle.
Have you had a proper fitting?
I mean, they fit me when I bought the bike.
No.
But I'll tell you this.
We can talk about this later, but a proper fitting and is key. It really is. I have now, I'm a little obsessive with my bikes. I currently have 4.
I did a video, by the way, of me riding a bike, and Mr. Marc Marling says, "You're not pedaling correctly. What did you say? Like, don't use your feet or something?"
You were using your toes. I do that all the time. Pedal from your heels, because you pedal by your toes. Yeah.
What's the, like, you want me to pedal like this?
No, not you. You had your toes dipped, which I do, and I have, and the guy who did my fitting, who also does a lot of coaching for triathletes.
Who? Is it a D word?
No, it was kind of.
It was like a DAC or something.
Di is in Virginia Beach. Yeah, no, not him. Someone else.
Where do you buy your bike from? Conti's?
He's gonna throw things at me. No, which bike? My current favorite bike. It was built for me by a builder. I have a titanium frame, light speed, and I have it all built out.
All right. So in the show notes and
all the details.
I want you to show me how I'm supposed to be riding, because I mean, you ride your bike, like, you're not sitting there like on the grass when your mom and dad are teaching you how to ride your bike, going, "Hey, Zach, hey, Mark, don't pedal with your toes."
No. So there are certain ways to do these things.
Is it more efficient?
It's more efficient. You get more power, and that's really the question. And when you get fitted, they'll put you on a power meter, and they'll adjust every little bit about how the clips are on your pedals, to your seat height, to your handlebar.
Okay, well, how much is your bike?
The
thousands of dollars.
Sure, but I have cheap bikes too. I have.
You would pay the multiple hundreds of dollars to get a proper fitting on a $650 bike?
Of course, because here's the deal. It's not about the bike. It's like, are you going to tell me that if you give Tiger Woods the shittiest set of golf clubs that you could find, he still wouldn't kick your ass?
Of course he would.
Right. So there's a certain amount about the equipment, but it's not just the equipment helps and gets little edges here and there, but it's very much about the athlete. And so you, the athlete, having a proper fit on a $650 bike from Walmart, for all I care.
It's not. It's a Giant Contend 3.
Okay, but it could be whatever it is. And a Giant Contend 3 is a very nice bike, by the way. It's just fine.
The reason I bought this bike was I bought a bottom of the line road bike.
Yeah.
This is what I said to the people. I said, look, I don't know that I'm going to get into this, so I don't want to spend thousands of dollars on a bike. I want the best bottom of the line bike I can get. And so I guess there's tiers, right? So let's say this is the lowest tier. And they were like, actually, that tier goes from about the price that you're paying for this, $500 to $2,000, basically, right? And they were like, this is actually this is probably the best bike that you can get, and it's actually a lot cheaper than some of the other ones.
No, and Giant makes some nice bikes. No knock at all. All I'm saying is, if you get that fitting, you shouldn't be getting, for the amount of riding and exercise you're doing, you shouldn't be getting sore 25 miles.
Well, it was also my first long ride in a long time.
Understood. But you will come to appreciate the amount of additional power, speed, by the way, which is important for triathletes, and endurance that you can get. And now I'm going to challenge you to come and do. It's not a big ride. You're going to do half marathons and full half Ironman.
I stopped recording.
Come on, man. You are going to come and do this MS ride with me. It's a charity I've been supporting now for. This will be my 12th year riding in an MS 150.
It's 150 miles.
But it's 2 days.
Okay.
So you have a choice. You can do 75 each day, or you can do 100 each day. So you can make it a 150, or you can make it a 200.
Which one do you normally do?
I usually only do the 75. I've done the 100, but I do the 75.
When is it?
First weekend in June.
Can I do it in 2021? Because that'll be right at.
Be perfect warm up for your.
I think my coach would say disagree. He would disagree with that.
Coach is not helping charity. All right, we'll find you another ride for this year, and then in 2020.
I'm all about doing a century. Okay, but I'm also terrified of riding on the streets. That's why I like riding on that trail.
Sure. All right, we'll do it. We'll come up with some other rides to do together.
But is your ride like safe?
Yeah, I mean, look,
It's
on the road. I'm not gonna say it's not on the roads, but it's mostly out in the country.
Okay.
So there aren't that many
hills.
There aren't that many hills around here. It's pretty flat around here.
So when I did this marathon, they said it was flat. I didn't think it was flat. Because to me, flat is like
pancake
flat. And there's like 20 micro hills.
Yeah, baby rollers. Yeah.
Man, they crushed me.
It's good exercise. When I was commuting to Seattle, I kept a bike out there, and there's hills, right? So I rode the Seattle to Portland. It's 207 miles. I rode it twice, 2 years in a row.
There and back, or just there?
No, just there. So it starts at the University of Washington, in like the parking lot of the football stadium, and it goes all the way down through Seattle, and then all the way down to Portland, Oregon.
And what school's there?
It doesn't finish in school. It finishes right in the downtown Portland.
What's your favorite book?
What's my favorite book about riding, or just in general?
Just in general.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's actually not that hard. So my favorite 2 complete junk novels, but which I will read every couple of years over and over again. Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett, I don't know. And The Stand by Stephen King.
The Stand by Stephen King?
Yeah, The Stand. It's like this thick.
Okay.
It is. Both those books have huge character development. They are massive books.
Favorite TV show?
I don't have a favorite TV show.
Are they called TV shows anymore, or are they just called series?
I don't know, but I don't think I have a favorite. Maybe back in the day, The Sopranos. Sopranos was great.
You seem like a Sopranos guy.
Sopranos was a great show.
Is he dead?
Oh, well, we know he's dead in real life, but is he dead? I don't know. Is Tony dead? Yeah. I mean, he was looking over his shoulder forever, right? That was the whole idea at the end of the day. He knew the time was.
Do you love shows that end with questions?
Sure.
Like that?
I don't need conclusion. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with if I understand the reason why it's open ended. Sure. I like documentaries too. I
love a good documentary.
Yeah.
But the problem with documentaries is I feel like they have to have people that have actually lived it, not just. It's like there was this Allen Iverson documentary that 30 for 30 did from ESPN about 15 years ago.
Yep.
And Allen isn't in it. And that ticks me off because it's like, well, I mean, you're missing kind of the main person. He's alive. Like,
right. Why? Yeah. That's not really about him if he's not part of it.
What's something that, well, you're going to.
I'm going to ask you. So tell me your favorite book.
Is that the first question I asked? Favorite book. So I'll say a couple. Scott Jurick's North, which is him speed running the Appalachian Trail, and it's him and his wife Jenny.
Okay.
I listened to it because it's him, and then her reading it, and she was his crew, and so he did it in like 46 days or something. It's really interesting. It's a story about resiliency and like grit and things like that, and I love the parallels between fitness and business. And I mean, I'm not interested in doing like ultra runs like that, but I love the parallels between that and business. Jesse Itzler, are you familiar with him?
No.
His claim to fame is he would say like he created some New York Knicks song. He's married to Sarah Blakely of Spanx, and he sold Marquis Jet to Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
But he also wrote a book called Living with a Seal, which is a story about how he was bored with his life, even though he's super successful, and like wanted to like push it more. So he met this guy named David Goggins.
Yes.
And hired him basically to push him for 30 minutes and documented the book. It's incredible. It's very interesting. It's basically saying like, when you think things are tough, no, they're not. And it's really, really interesting. David Goggins' book is also very good on that. And then a very never talked about book that I think is still in the kind of, I love this sports world type of stuff, is Ronda Rousey's autobiography. And it's about her life until she was still the champion when she wrote it. So she had never lost. And just how her parents pushed her to be who she was, and how resourceful that was. And so very good parents.
So those kind of inspirational things kind of get you. All the 3 of those books kind of, take me down that idea a little bit. That's what.
Yeah, push to the edge, right? Like how it's like learn about other people.
Have you watched the Barkley marathons?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just thinking when you're talking about endurance running and stuff, that's nuts.
So there's the documentary on that.
That one, yeah.
And then there is several other micro videos
About
around stuff like that. And look, I like when I say like I have no interest in doing things like that, like I have no interest in doing things like that. But I love to hear the stories of people who do things like that.
Of course.
What got you into Barkley?
I think I wound up watching a doc about it's not the Ram, which is the Race Across America. It's the other Race Across America, which I forget the name of it, which is unsupported. You have to do it on your own.
Right.
And so they start in like Oregon and they finish in Jamestown. And these guys, they don't sleep. They go straight on like through the night and stuff like that and get a couple hours here and there, sleep on the side of the road.
So what's the easiest way to do America? 2,000 miles?
Something like that. Just over 2,000, yeah.
So unsupported means they can't go to a store and buy stuff, or they can?
They can go to a store and buy. They can't have a crew. They can't, they're on their own to support themselves all the way through, whatever it means. It's pretty nuts. And then because, like I saw that, then it popped up. So I'm like, ooh, Barkley Marathons. I've heard of that. Let me watch this thing. And I was just captivated by it.
I love that feature of any kind of content play where it's like, oh, you watch this, we think you'll like this.
Yeah.
It's a great feature because you learn about this other stuff
that you wouldn't have otherwise seen, sure. Yeah. So what's your favorite show? TV show, whatever.
Series. Yeah, so forever it was Lost.
Okay. Never watched it. Never saw it.
Loved it. I love character development. I feel like it's very deep in character development. Number 2 would be, this is up until about 6 months ago. So I'll say this. So number 2 is now Lost. Number 3 would have been The Office. Okay. I just think it's one of those shows that you can like tune in and watch all the time. I think Steve Carell's hilarious. Michael Scott, the world's best boss. It's just so funny. But Breaking Bad is now it. And
it's got good character development.
It reminded, so I was like in the last season with like 6 episodes left, and I'm like, I haven't stopped watching this in a while. I think this might be Lost if this ends well. And it kept going. And I'm in that last episode. I'm like, what the heck else is going to happen? And it ended. I was like, that's it. This is going to be the number 1. And I love character development. And what's funny is like, I was so against it for so long. I'm like, some guy making math like this is so stupid.
And then you're like,
someone that I respect and is a friend and Chris Ruddick of Prime 3 Software says, hey, you should watch this. It's really good. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. And so I started that night, and then my wife happened to be out of town that weekend. So like I went crazy and got like 2 or 3 seasons done. And yes,
Chris has always got good information. He's been on a podcast.
Yeah,
and he's got some good stuff. So for my audience, who although everyone should know Zach by now, but for anyone who doesn't, how can they find you?
So I'll tell them the answer and give them a hack at the same time. So you can find me everywhere at Zach Miller Says. So ZACK Miller SAYS. So that's the website, ZachMillerSays.com, and on all social at Zach Miller Says. The reason I think you should make this easy for people to find is that when someone asks that question, you can say at Zach Miller Says, not, find me at Marc_Marling 4333 on LinkedIn or Marc Marling on Twitter. Give one centralized answer, right? And so if you're able to put all of your handles under one thing, it's an easy marketing thing as well. So at Zach Miller Says everywhere on the internet.
Excellent. Good.
Where can we find you?
At Corp Thought.
All one word.
Pretty much at Corp Thought on Twitter, I'm trying to think if any of them are Corporate Thought, because it is Corporate Thought is the so if you're going
to corporatethought.com.
So corporatethought.com. If it's Corp Thought on most of the other platforms.
And that's because they weren't available.
No, it's because it was too many letters.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you're in the same kind of mindset of like making sure it needs to be easy to say that though, right? I mean, there's all these people that have like so many different handles, ridiculous website that doesn't make sense. Like it's like, let these things work together. It's hard enough to be remembered anyway. Yep. Let this frequency help you in a marketing kind of way.
Good point. So, well, thanks for coming by.
It was wonderful.
Makes me very happy to see you.
I don't normally end just like this. Normally I end with my guest singing.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Can you sing us a song? What's your favorite song?
What's my favorite song? Oh my goodness! When I was a little kid, it was like a Rhinestone Cowboy, but I'm not singing that. But I will sing. How about
Rhinestone Cowboy?
Isn't that too funny? Yeah.
I don't.
How about The Gambler? Do you know The Gambler by
No.
Kenny Rogers?
No.
Well, when you learn it, we'll do a duet together and we'll record it.
I actually don't end my show like that, but I thought it'd be fun to see if I could get you to sing.
Not happening.
All right. Tuning off from 351. I'm Zach Miller. That's Mark Marling.
I'm Mark Marling.
Peace and pancakes, y'all.
Thanks, man.
Oh. Here you go.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Let's hope that recorded.